Here we are. Monday the 5th of September. Welcome everybody to Hilton Parish Council Meeting. See you all. And receive apologies for absence and declaration of interest. You've seen that we have apologies for absence from Heather, Kieran and Nina. The reasons are there, and we're all happy with that. And any declarations of interest?
I just have one item on the agenda which relates to the use of the football club and the pitch. Because my son plays for one of the teams.
Thank you very much. And Sarah, you want to say something at this point?
I do.
Yes.
Oh, do
Item 2223 127.
Yes.
Because that's the only person I can think of that's got interest in any agenda items. Not that I want to lead your hand on this, but I think Sarah's declaring an interest.
Yes.
Okay. So at that point, we've done apologies for absence and any declarations of interest. We close the Parish Council meeting and open the meeting to the floor. We have 2 parishioners here, and we do have a report from our District Councillor. So, it's not actually. It's dark, isn't it? It's dark. Yes, it's dark. I didn't recognise Darling.
No.
Sorry.
Sorry, I
hadn't seen those.
didn't mean to come in cities, but like you're
Right.
running a bit late. So.
Members of the public, anything to say? There are 2 more. Andy.
Yeah, there's a couple of items I'm representing Pat, sort of on behalf of his Vice Chair. I thought it'd be useful to give some background as it's there for discussion. There's the one regarding the signage. Just the background is we've contacted well over 230 companies that have had vehicles come through. We've identified and written to them politely and asked them what they're doing. Part of that exercise is to ask them what they're doing, why they came through, and to try and work out what the reasoning is, so we can put some mitigation in place. You know, is it their sat navs that they were following? Was it the signage? Was there congestion? Were they just trying it on? All those sort of things. So got a pretty good representation out of 230 companies of what the main reasons are. And the primary reason is the signage. Certainly from the south, they just say they just didn't notice the signs. So you can probably see there's been some temporary additional signage put up by us, which has helped an awful lot. And also I met up with Inspector Moody last week to discuss the enforcement of the weight limit and also speeding as well. And the first thing he said to me when we sat down was, well, the signage from the south is pretty crap, isn't it? And he said, I'll be very happy to, from a police perspective, to put that view forward if we want. So they're the sort of the couple of, I guess, justifications of why I think, well, we think we do need better signage. And that would just reduce the amount of lorries coming through, just to make it much more obvious. And one in particular this week sent me a message back, and looking at it, he's quite correct. If you're coming from Papworth End, the 2 signs that are actually either side, you get as far as the roundabout, the 2 signs are way back up the road compared with them going into the village. And they said, if you look going into Papworth Village, they're right by the roundabout. They're quite a long way up, and actually, although you should even try to get up there, by the time you've really got your nose in, it's too late, and an HGV can't turn around. So that's an example. I'm not going to solve the problem of what the signage needs to be, but that's sort of a good example of what those are. So that's sort of some of the background for that. The other point on there from the HAP perspective for the batteries for the MVAS and for the data collector, it's been going for 2 years now. The batteries, well, we collected over 4 million vehicles coming through, data on all of those. Sort of gives you an indication of the volume on that, and also the SID, of course, down at the other end is working away, but they're lasting less than a week now, and it's just really onerous changing those all the time. And I think they've provided excellent data for the 2 LHI bids that have gone through so far, and obviously you're discussing the next LHI bid, and data will probably be useful for that as well. So as this is sort of value to the village, I'm just asking that perhaps the Parish Council might want to buy some batteries to replace those that are past their date, to help us get another couple of years out of it.
Yeah.
So that's my request for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug?
Yeah, from the county council's perspective, basically we've had a summer shutdown. I think as I reported, the New County Council decided to only have their meetings every 3 months, so we literally had them in June and July, and there's been very little in the way of meetings since. We're coming back into the cycle of meetings again, so things are starting to happen. What I've tried to concentrate on over the summer is trying to resolve some of the highway issues that we've had. We've still haven't got a permanent highways officer for the works that need doing in the area. It's intermittent as to whether we've got a rights of way officer. Sometimes we have, sometimes we haven't. So we tried to resolve that. And there was also the issues around things like the cycle oblique, pedestrian oblique, equine route that was supposed to run from here via fence stand to St Ives that's disappeared off the face of the earth, as indeed of 2 others in my district county division. I had a meeting with Neil Shaler, who's councillor in Cambridge. He's the new vice chairman of the committee. And I know Neil quite well. He's quite an open, honest guy, and he said to me, "Look, I've been looking at what's been going on, not just here but elsewhere." He said, "You know, it's no secret. I think there's big things falling through the cracks, left, right, and centre." He said, "There's no use trying to pretend, you know, it wasn't there and it's been it's been put to one side, or it's been taken out because it wasn't going to happen." He said, "There's things that just are not there, and he's trying to find out what's happening with them." What he has agreed to do, though, and I said it might be better from our point of view, is if I bring those 3 projects back again with the support of, well, those 3 projects, it's 4 councils involved, because Fenstan's involved in 1 here and 1 in Hemingford Grey as well. And he would actually try and get those fast tracks so at least they get into the programme, because the thing is with all of these, unless you can get them into the programme, you can't get them put in front of the combined authority who do a lot of the funding, etc. for these and the long-term plans. And if you don't get it there, then when the funds do become available, if it's not on the list, as this time, you know, with the phase 2 of the works, because they've fallen through the cracks, to use Neil's wording, there's a few issues, so he's offered to take that forward. So what I was going to suggest is with your 2 members here and the various others, we'll try and work up over the next month and get some stuff in front of Neil that he can then put in front of senior officers and try and drive that forward. It's quite handy because to have him there, because he's a Cambridge member and he's not a member of my political group, because I get on really well with him and I think we have a good 2-way flow of information. It means I can go and have these chats and try and do some things that will work. So I'll be having a word with, it's Heather, isn't it? I think it was.
Yes.
Well, I dictated a memo this afternoon to you both, just updating you on where we are with that, suggesting that we need to get our heads together. So if you haven't had it now, you should hopefully have it tomorrow. So just to let you know where we are there.
I think it would be fair to say we have £9,500 of Cambridge County Council money that was set aside for a feasibility study in the NMU. Yeah. And it still sits there, yeah?
Well, that's it. Well, if we need to spend it, then we don't need to, well, if you need to spend it, not we, because it's, but it's useful. But there seems to be, there's no records of that. You speak to Neil, you mentioned that to me, and I've seen all the paperwork that Heather had before. There's nothing in the records to show it. I mean, it's difficult to comprehend how a county council can do whole tranches of work, but it has managed to. And I have to be honest, I don't think it's a recent political thing. I think this is a long-standing issue. It'd be easy for me to say, we lost the election 18 months ago, what a disaster it's been, but it's not that. I think it goes back further than that. So I'm hoping. 2 or 3 years, not just 8. Yeah, it has. So it'd be very easy to play cheap political football with it and say, well, it's because we're not in charge anymore. But looking at it, I think it wasn't any better going back. So hopefully, as I say, if we can get some work done with Neil and get the projects included in there. My only reservation on that is, of course, with the problems that we've got with the combined authority at the moment. I don't know where the mayor quite sits in all of this with delivering. But once again, if we don't put stuff to him, he definitely won't be delivering anything. So we've got that to do. The other thing that's also happened on the LHI, getting the various projects, I've had an update on where they all are at the minute. So they're all in the right sort of zones. As you may have noticed, other than the 7.5 tonne limit last year, which I accept isn't perfect because I've noticed that myself coming from the other way, your project was the only one that's actually been delivered in my patch. We had loads of them approved. Because of the shortage of officers, they literally are 18 months behind on them. So, they've got to take some action on that as well. Although, I don't know if you've been following in the press with South Cambridge, there's been a lot of bizarre press about, South Cambridge are going to be putting their staff on 30-hour, 4-day weeks and they're going to get more work done, which makes great press. But actually, the logic behind it is, they only filled 80% of their vacancies last year. This year they're even lower, and if they don't do something interesting to either keep the existing staff or get new people in, you know, and I'm not saying it's the right idea, but at least it's an idea. But the county have got exactly the same problem. You know, they're all fishing in a ever decreasing pond for more staff. So no, but they need to get that sorted, and hopefully I've got more confidence in Neil, and I've forgotten what the chairman of the committee's called this year. They've got new people in there. I'm far more confidence than I had last year that they're, you know, prepared to take the officers on, because unfortunately that's what it needs at a high level council. And here it's quite easy, because if you want to beat the clerk up, there she is.
Yeah.
You know, but when you get to, you know, some of the officers that I deal with, I haven't met even now. You know, so we're totally reliant on the chairman of these committees who do meet with them regularly to take the message forward. So I'm quite comfortable with that. I've got a slight disagreement with Neil at the moment, because he's really keen on the congestion charge proposal that's come forward for Cambridge. You know, so I like him, but we don't always agree. But I did say to that one, I thought it might be slightly barking. I can understand it from a Cambridge perspective. I was there today because I, you know, had to pop over there for a long appointment. I decided to take the bus because I had to go up to Addenbrooke's way, so I thought I'll take the bus or whatever. So you can understand the logic to a degree, but it doesn't help the rest of us who don't live in Cambridge. So I think that one's slightly bonkers. The other thing that's coming forward on the highway stuff, we've been pushing for a while regarding the bridges on the footways around here. We've got a response on that, which I had today, so that hopefully that's come over to you. May or may not have had it, but the officer involved wants to set a meeting up with a few of us. So you know, and I've suggested to him, if I'm not available, just get on with yourself, because you know, there's no point in me holding it up if you're quite happy to do that. So I'll let you know on that in due course. So the other thing, bizarrely, on that 7.5 tonne, I had a message today saying they've noticed there's a problem the other end, so they're going to put better signage on the 1307. So I shall write back and say, after my meeting tonight, it's very interesting to hear, that's great, and we're really pleased you're doing it, but actually there's a bigger problem the other way. Can you please attend to that?
Well, our analysis is the traffic is bad in both directions.
Yes.
But the complaints we get, the excuses we're getting are more from the south end.
Well, nonetheless, I'll respond and say that's a great idea, do it there, but it really needs doing there. But I came that way the other day and I thought, well, actually, if I was in a lorry, I've already gone too far, so I noticed exactly what you said, so I'll pick up on that. Other than that, the communities group's meeting in 2 weeks, the committee that meets there, so if there are any projects that you need to bring forward on that, I know the clerk gets written to sort of suggested that you might have, but they do have schemes available, and hopefully they're looking at things like, you know, funding for groups to help deprived people that you may or may not have in the village, and you know, there may be some funds coming there to help with various groups, etc. And that's about it at the moment, as I say, because no one's been in there for 3 months. The meetings I've been involved in have been more around appeals for people trying to get their children in, not in schools they should be at, but sending their children to schools that they want to choose, and then expecting me to pay to shift them across one side of the county to the other. We have to sit down and work out whether that's fair. Sometimes it is, you know, there are good reasons why a child needs to be in a different school, but you know, just because Doug would like his child to attend, you know, Ellsworth School instead of Henderford Gray, it doesn't mean that the rest of us should pay for me to do it. So that's mostly what I've been doing over the summer, listening to those appeals. And there we go. So if you've got any questions, please ask. If not, I'll pick up on those bits for you and we'll sort out the meetings in due course.
I'm going to read Claire's report.
Yeah.
And there'll be a point that comes up from that, which I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, of course.
Which would be something that I would ask you a question about as well, because I was at the same meeting.
Yeah.
We'll come to that when we come to it, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Is that right?
Of course it is.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
My pleasure.
Right. Claire Tevlin, our district council, can't be here, but she's asked for us to report, share her report, climate strategy. HDC are building their climate strategy, and a progress report can be found. I'm not going to read out the website because it's got lots of things, capital letters, little letters. We'll put that on the Parish Council website. Anglia Water new proposal. Anglia Water gave a briefing to district council members about Anglian water development proposals. The Fen Reservoir project, which is two new reservoirs, one to be in Fens, and we'll see Anglian working with Cambridge Water. The other will be in Lincolnshire. More details will be shared when that's published. Huntingdon District Council have published their draft market town documents, which is market towns of Huntingdon, Ramsey and St Ives now have draft master plans. Sounds a bit like master plans. published, which can be viewed on the council's website alongside a feedback form for local people to have the say in what's important for their towns, what will have the greatest positive impact, and which types of projects should be prioritised. So that is to draw people's attention to those draft master plans. Scheduled East-West Rail Community Group meeting Friday the 9th of September, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Haslingfield Village Hall, open to Camborne and surrounding areas, local representatives groups. I went to a East-West Rail meeting on the same day, later in the day, as the Parish Council Conference, and I'm going to mention that in Councillors' items. Luton Stack, and this is the one. So, Claire attended the same meeting as I did in Little Gransden, where there were around 160 people, 150, 160 people attended. It was very full. There was people standing. There were local councillors from South Cambs District Council, South Cambs, from the parishes of Little Gransden, Abbottsley, Hateley, all quite unhappy with the new Luton Stack and the way it has impacted on their lives since it was put into place. There were people explaining that actually none of the planes have violated the altitude agreement. So when they come out of the stack over Huntingdon, they've got to be at least 8,000 feet, and obviously between there and Luton they've got to descend. And people were upset that these aircraft were below what was agreed would be the agreed altitude, but they aren't. They're unhappy at the noise because obviously these rural locations had no noise before, but they now have noise. People are impacted in their gardens. And the one thing that I got out of the meeting was that the action group that had been formed were going to look to challenge Luton Airport, CAA, on and the CAA and the people who conducted the consultation on the way it was consulted, that it was not a well-constructed consultation. And I spoke to Claire and she sent me some stuff regarding Toomey, who is one of the Toomey Hawkins, who is a South Cambs Caldecott district councillor, and she has got her own website and she has been putting quite a lot of stuff on there about what's been happening in the process. So meetings that happened with the CAA and the airport people, and at this moment in time there is a project going on, it's entered a one-year phase through to next year whereby they are reviewing what's happening, and there is talk about that. If people in Hilton feel they're impacted, they should be writing to and drawing their attention to. I got from the meeting in Little Gransden that perhaps HDC were going to be doing something and perhaps CCC were going to be doing something, but Claire hadn't seen anything from HDC and she wasn't sure whether CCC were doing anything. Do you know anything?
I haven't picked up anything at all at CCC. There was when the initial consultation was done, it was done by HDC as the local.
Yeah, HDC were represented, and I think CCC were at a meeting.
Yeah, so I think that might have been prior to my time. So I know definitely. I haven't heard anything else back by the CCC, nor are there any, on the news items that get sent round to councillors. There's nothing mentioned at all.
Gosh, there's a lot. Toomey has put a lot of stuff up.
Yeah.
But that's more South Cambs, obviously, because they're
it is.
potentially more affected, but I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
I hear them.
Yeah.
We didn't hear them before. But I was going to say in the council's items.
I'll try and find out for you.
Thank you. Yeah. But there is nothing that can actually be done, because it's in this period of a year where they're reviewing what has been put in place. But the encouragement would be that if people are unhappy and feel impacted, they should complain to, and we'll put the details up on where they should complain to.
Yeah.
And then the final thing in Claire's note was the Greater Cambridge Partnership plans for transport improvement and congestion charge. Briefing session for HDC members is on 7th of September, and she'll come up, give us more information when that becomes available. So, thank you very much. Thanks, Doug. And we will now move back to the Parish Council meeting, which the first item is to approve, unless anybody else, people have got questions for Dan?
Well, happy to, if not.
You can.
I would say if you obviously during the session, if you've got any questions to clarify, please ask. Rather you ask them.
Will do.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. Right. First thing, approve the minutes of the Parish Council Meeting held on the 4th of July. And then you all have done. So, anybody, hopefully if you've had any queries about those meeting minutes, you've addressed them to Nicola already, but if you haven't, and you have, that's so now. Otherwise, I propose that they accepted. Seconded. All those in favour? Who were there? Thank you very much. The next one is a planning meeting held on the 5th of July, which is not that one. 5th of July, okay. This was talking about sorry, it just doesn't have the headline of what it was about. This was Westport, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we...
20 Checkers Croft.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, the house, the proposal putting the house behind the house in Checkers Croft. Thank you very much, yes. Which we supported, recommended for that it didn't be approved. And we had a number of parishioners at that meeting who spoke out against it. Everybody who was there happy with the meeting minutes? And so I propose that those are accepted. Rob was quicker. A second, those in favour? That's Sarah, Rob, John, and me. Yeah, I didn't see a hand up in my peripheral vision, sorry. And then we had another planning meeting on the 18th of August. That's 18th of August is doesn't tell you.
It's at
It's at the bottom.
Oh yeah. So I expected. So this is Trin's house. This was the making Trin's house bigger, two-storey extensions inside, and the planning committee supported this application for approval. And that was me, John and Sarah at that meeting, so I propose that those minutes are accepted. John seconded, and Sarah, we all agree. Thank you very much, that's good. And that concludes the minutes. Oh no, staffing meeting, 14th of June, which we couldn't do at the last Parish Council meeting because there weren't enough people at the meeting to do it. So I've just got to call those up, wherever they might be. Here we are. So, and we can't do those either. Because the three people that are present are me, Kieran and Nina, so we can't approve those minutes, I'm sorry to say. So we have to knock those forward a month. Okay, and so the next item on the agenda is matters arising from the last meeting, including the Parks report. Clark.
With regards to the A14 Legacy Project, the National Highways have replied to state that they consider the A14 Legacy Project, which was works to the Wear, to be closed and that they have no money for any further improvements. The development consent order for the improvement of the A428 from the Black Cat to Caxton Gibbet has been approved. The work is expected to start at the end of this year, with the new road opening in 2026. The chairman and myself attended the HDC Parish Council's conference on Wednesday the 20th of July, and the slides from that have been emailed to all councillors. I have been working with Cambridge Water regarding the fact that there is water in the Ford, which would indicate a water leak. They sent out a second leakage team who have now found signs of a leak and have marked near the minor Ford for an exploratory dig, and hopefully that should be within the next 14 days. Pitdean Farm, which is over in Ellsworth, have lodged a map with the definitive map department of the County Council under section 31 paragraph 6 of the Highways Act 1980, which means that accrual of any public prescriptive rights through long-term use of routes on the land will have ceased from the 4th of August. which is when the map was lodged. So that means that when you go across somebody's land without dispute for 20 years, you can claim prescriptive rights. So from the 4th of August, you can no longer claim prescriptive rights over the land owned by Pitting Farm. The deposit, however, does not have any legal effect on any public rights of way which are already in existence or have already come into existence through long-term use but are not yet recorded on the definitive map. There has already been an application lodged for a definitive map modification order to record a public footpath that was submitted to the county in October 2021, which concerns some routes from the Ellsworth end connecting to the current right-of-way out of Pitting Farm. And you can view that on the County Council website under deposit M187. And because it was lodged before the 4th of August 2022, it has no effect. The deposit has no effect on that claim as it relates to a period before the date that the map was lodged. The Community Garden Committee has reported that they've utilised their easements 6 times in the last 6 months, and they've given explanations for each of those uses. The interest rate on the savings account has increased from 0.45% to 0.65%. A parishioner has reported to me that there were some young adults or teenagers on the green who lit a fire. The parishioner spoke to them and then they put the fire out with watering cans, but apparently this isn't the first time that this has occurred. I have reported this to the St Ives Neighbourhood Policing Team and have also encouraged any parishioners to report any antisocial behaviour directly to the police using 101. I have received the first draft of the grant agreement from the Cambridge County Council legal team for the dredging, and we just need to finalise it with the availability of the dredging contractor, which I still don't have at this point, so that the start and end dates of the grant can be defined. Once this is complete, the grant agreement will be presented to the Parish Council for approval. And a visit from the Floodmobile on Saturday the 23rd of July was a success and well attended with over 60 parishioners in attendance. The Bright payroll software is now fully set up and the August payroll was run using this system. As requested by councillors, I've written some training regarding the community infrastructure levy. Just waiting a response from councillors regarding how they would like this training to be delivered. And last but not least, the swings at the playground have been looped over the top bar, rendering them unusable by children, and this has been rectified.
Good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to review and ratify decisions made under the scheme of delegation. I authorise some stationery at £161.20 plus VAT. There was some talk between the Parish Council and the Football Club, and that's going to come up further on, isn't it? As an agenda item. And County Broadband offered free connection for broadband to the cricket pavilion. It's part of the thing they've taken forward within the village, and so we said yes, please. So those 3 items need to be ratified. I propose that they're accepted, unless anyone's got a question about it. Ed seconded that. All those in favour? Right. Then we have a Green Open Working Spaces Working Group report. Read this out.
Up to you, I'm happy to do it if you'd like me to.
Go on, you do.
As Doug mentioned, the deterioration of the bridges, also known as roads, across the green has been reported to the County Council, and the clerk is off to meet with the County Council officer on site, which we're going to be arranging to review the bridges and assess the need. Glenn, who's one of our tree contractors, tree surgeons, and Ian Stott as the tree warden, went round the trees on the 19th of August to do the annual tree survey, and Ian's just awaiting Glenn's report before he contacts the other 2 tree surgeons to get quotes. And Ian has also advised that the maize will be roped off this coming week to try and encourage some growth during the autumn period ahead of winter. Unfortunately, since the maize was recut, there's actually been no growth on the maize due to the inclement weather.
Thank you.
And that's the report.
Thank you very much. Next on the thing is asset register review. A couple of surveys were done, or surveys, one was a better word, because I can't think of one. One was on benches, one was on streetlights. So the benches have all been looked at, and there was a report and considered whether to put out improvements or repairs to the benches. The report goes something like most of the benches are badly weathered and need attention, e.g. a coastal conservative. In the case of the picnic table near the children's playground, there are burn marks on the surface which need to be sanded down. The bench in urgent need of repair or removal is number 1 on the list, described as opposite the lines on the green. One of the rear seat panels is missing, but I believe there's a little bit there that's been replaced.
It's been replaced. And it's a nice repair.
Oh, I did it.
The rest of the bench is still weathered.
Yes,
They all are.
well, they're outside, so guess what? They're going to be weathered.
It's very strange the way they're described as well. It's not exactly opposite, but it's very strange the way they're located.
Yes, it's not opposite the lines, is
It's
it?
not opposite.
It's to the left, if you're there, it's to the left of the cricket pavilion, yes. But there we go. So that has been repaired at the moment. And your report has, Claire, sorry, I've stolen the thunder. Do you want to tell us what else you found whilst you're out and about looking at the benches?
Mainly, some of them are actually good-like and they need a coat of preservative or covering or whatever.
Yes.
It should be a fairly straightforward job, and there was no other else. Most of them needed that. The one that doesn't is the WI bench that was restored last year.
Yeah.
I don't know, I imagine it's a regular job. You have to keep an eye. And I believe that there is some money in the kitty
There
to
is.
do that. So
Mention that.
I think that's our
Mention that.
proposal, that some money is used from the money put aside to actually maintain the benches. But there is a bit of a problem with the burnt bench,
Yes.
sorry, picnic table, by the children's playground. Because that's a bunch of kids, and the same sort of damage was done in the community garden. So we all want to be a bit mindful of the group of kids. As many people have pointed out, particularly, it will probably die down. But I just want to report on the same topic really. This evening, black car on the green, parked on the green, WC Poo, its registration number. The 2 guys I've seen before, vaping stuff left on the green, and it looks as if they're selling. And what else they're selling, I don't know. But there's a group of kids, some from the village, some from Penstanton, some from Papworth, who've been around here in the summer. And I don't want to hype it up too much, but I think we should be aware of it, and we should be trying to discourage it if we can, where we can.
We've been speaking to the community police officer on St Ives, and that'll be something we can report.
Yeah, and I have reported it to the commission with drugs and particular places where they deal. What I would recommend though is that you report it on 101 or via the website with what you see and the specifics, rather than going through me each time. There's no reason why everyone can't just report directly to the police,
Absolutely.
because they're going to be the ones to deal with it.
Perhaps we need to know how to do it, and then we will do it.
So
I mean,
101
for the village,
or the website.
Right, okay.
Yes, and perhaps we'll put that in us, where we will put inspection.
I think that would be very
Just to
good.
highlight
That would be very
that
good.
and suggest perhaps something about the benches being burnt and the fires that started. Perhaps that parents might like to take a bit more responsibility on their children, maybe, I don't know. Whether or not we can say that.
Reword that way.
Yes. However, we do know that as teenagers grow older, they do grow out of things like that. And then till the next set of teenagers come through.
And maybe on school nights they won't be around quite so much as they were during the summer.
And their parents are wrong for moving into a village where there is nothing to do.
The guys driving the car are not school kids.
Yeah, no, and that needs to be reported. So recommendations on the benches then, I think, I think that we should talk to the handyman,
The maintenance person.
and ask him whether he would be prepared to get engaged in a scheme of works on tarting up the benches, de-weatherising them.
He's currently only employed, for want of a better word, for 3 hours a week.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of benches.
Yeah.
It'll take a long
So
time.
it might be that we want to look at a different way of doing it. But can we ask him first of all? Because I don't want to put his nose out of joint, because it might be something that he's got plans on doing. So let's ask him first of all, and then if not, we'll look at whether we can get some parishioners involved in doing it.
That's a resolution of the council.
Is that a happy resolution?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there is a bit of money, as you say, there's money there for bench maintenance, and yeah,
It's not impossible to think of adopting a bench near you, is it? I'd be very happy.
that's
to
easy
come
for
with
me. There's no benches near me.
Lucky you. Or unlucky you.
There's a fly there, that keeps floating around. It's still a bit rain. Are you happy with that proposal?
Yes.
That's the proposal? That's whoever you like. Ed, John.
I don't write it down.
All those in favour? Thank you. Right. And we'll report back on that. Street lights, to review the report and to carry out... Street lights. Rob, can't be sure on the... Shut up, Peter. Let Rob present.
Got it. Yeah, so I had the great task of looking at every lamppost in the village to work out which ones were actually the PC ones and find them. What 3 words all checked out correctly, and the majority of them were fine as far as I could tell. I had a little bit of trouble identifying during daylight whether they were LED or sodium. Where I've specified LED on the inventory, I could definitely thought I could see little square LED rows of bulbs in there. Otherwise I marked them as sodium unless they were. There's a modern one on the corner of New England that's very clearly an LED light because it's ultra thin. So that isn't necessarily 100% accurate. There were a few things I recorded that are poor condition. So, for example, the one light had an incorrect size light cover fitted to it. I don't think it was particularly bad. I just reported it. It's got the wrong size cover on. I think it's okay. There was nothing that I would recommend needs immediate attention. The worst condition one, I guess, was the one in Maze Road, which is the one that's fixed to a telegraph pole rather than being a lamppost, which is clearly very old and rusty. But, you know, as long as it's operational and functional, I think I wouldn't personally recommend solving it until it finally gives in doing the job, I think.
And K&M,
Okay.
go round and look at all the... Go round and look at all the stars?
No, they get reported to me and I then request an engineer is sent to particular lights that are not working.
So perhaps we could, if
Oh,
we're talking about
wonderful.
one, have a look at that one, to see what they think at some time in the future.
And there was just one that obviously water had got inside the shade and it was very badly stained, which arguably could affect the sort of light output slightly. But again, I don't think it's reported and it goes faulty, I wouldn't suggest.
Thank you, and thank you Claire and Heather and Rob for doing those surveys. Quick question, if I may. Did K&M say that as sodium lights went, they would replace them with LED for free?
Yes. Yeah,
That's
that's part of
part of
the
the
updated maintenance agreement.
But at the moment,
And I think I get the impression from the ones I get to see, in most cases they have some sort of LED bulb that fits into the sodium
No.
fitting, so they don't actually
It's
need
not
to
full
replace the
lantern,
whole head.
it's
So,
yeah.
'cause that seems to have happened on a number of them.
The lantern was replaced on the one in New England at the expense of the Parish Council last year.
that's the one that's got the thin top.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly modern one.
And do you know if they've changed in the indication that some of these are LED now?
They don't report to me when
Okay,
they change.
fine. I just wondered whether they did. Okay.
I don't suppose you know if there's some huge benefit to having the LED bulb. I mean, the sodium are used, I think, because they are relative. In the olden days, they were low cost compared to incandescent.
I don't know off the top of my head. I would think that LED would be cheaper to run, but
I just wondered if the saving and the cost of bulbs these days makes it worthwhile actually funding their replacement.
Potentially more environmentally friendly in terms of cost to run. But if you went for a total swap over, you might find the cost pretty cheap. Thank you. So, thanks, Rob. So we'll talk to County and Parish and ask them at some point to cast their eyes over the Maze Road.
Would you like to resolve?
Yeah, I was just forming the resolution. And is that okay? Yeah. Okay, so that's the resolution. Rob, second to that. All those in favour? Thank you. Right. The next item. Reeves Ditch and the Ware. And this concerns the fish that are in Reeves Ditch. So, we had a nice email from the Environment Agency, which you will have seen. So this was, this came when Nicola was on holiday, and the Environment chap left a message with you, didn't he? And then he felt it was that important that he would send the email to myself, because he has, and so he says he attended the site on the 5th of August to carry out water quality monitoring on the large pond which contains the carp. Water quality, which had no real concerns about at present. So he's saying the oxygen levels were okay, the temperature was good, the conductivity was good. The ammonia from fish and waterfowl waste could increase further if levels in the pond decline further, and this could lead to fish mortality. The pond, but he does go on to say that the pond is not sustainable for fish populations, and we suggest the council employ a fish consultant to remove these prior to a possible fish mortality occurring. Please find attached a list of certified fish consultants who could complete this task and carry out the necessary paperwork on the council's behalf. This is not the first report we've received this year regarding this pond and fish in distress, and we've attended several reports over the years. As I mentioned in the phone call, we may look to start recharging the council for our time in attending these incidents if no proactive work is carried out by the council. And so that was quite fortuitous, because I also received an email that very day from a parishioner suggesting to me that he was concerned about the fish and wanted to, offered to get in there and remove them, to hold the tanks for us, and which was very nice, because he went and did it. But unfortunately, is that one in here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In your right hand.
That one.
That.
Oh yeah, and he got 19 mirror common carp, 1 mirror carp, 11 roach, 14 gudgeon, and some manky legs, which resulted in going to hospital and taking a series of antibiotics, but thankfully he is now well. We also had emails in about the next item on the agenda, but I think we should deal with item 101.1 first of all, and that fly, which is the Environment Agency, as you can see, are telling us that that pond is not sustainable for fish. Now, I understand from the parish councillors of a few years ago that the fish were actually introduced by a parishioner, so they weren't indigenous fish, if you like. They were introduced to the pond. And in the time I've been in parish council, every time there are low water levels going up, because, strangely, the climate is changing and we're going through periods of sustained drought, or we are likely to, but who knows, because we don't tend to do anything about that. Concerns are raised about the fish. Now, the Environment Agency, as you can see, are telling us that there should not be fish in that pond, because it is not sustainable, because as the water levels go down, they get calls from concerned parishioners. So, what would we like to do about it?
So what's happened to the fish that he's taken out already?
He's taken up some holding tanks.
Is it holding tanks?
I think they're up at
Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lakes.
Which is very nice. I mean, I did thank him, and I have obviously expressed our concern about the fact that he did become ill from what he did, what he was doing, but I'm pleased that he's back on, he's healthy. So,
Is this linking to where they're asking us to put in, was that the parishioner who was saying about branches? That's different.
that parishioner also organised a removal of fish and did 23 fish
Okay.
At some point. But I think that was before parishioner number 2.
Okay. So the Environment Agency is saying that that pond is not suitable for fish as it is. And as a parish council, we want to keep fish in there, we need to improve the pond. But which would be difficult because it goes up and down according to the climate. And we can't go out there with hose pipes filling it with the fish. And it's not really sustainable to keep putting the fish in and out again every year or every couple of years when the pond goes down, is it?
Has it ever dried up before?
It has been
To the level it is?
to the level it has, yeah. A fair few years ago, I think.
They're backed out the water, didn't
Yeah.
they, the fish?
Yeah.
Was that like
And then
76 or something?
No.
This century.
Yeah. And then last year or the year before,
COVID, yeah.
there was some I don't want to use the word blame, but there was some concern raised that the building of the A14 was low on the water table, and the A14 people did actually come along and pump some water into the pond. But the water levels have gone down again and the fish were at peril.
Will the silting or desilting we've discussed improve the habitat for fish? Will that make it deeper and hence more?
Well, the Environment Agency says he's got no concerns about the state of the water in the pond. It's just that there
It's
isn't,
got any.
and there's no feed into the
Yeah, I just wondered if he did all the silt out, does that make it hold more water and hence it would be more
It would,
tolerant
there's
to-
still there's no water flowing into that pond. So when it dries out, it's going to dry out again.
But if it holds double the amount of water, it's going to take twice as long to dry out.
Yeah, I don't know what the desilting would do. Well, it's the honest response to that.
But when we got the dredging quotes, they were looking at that they were based on removing a foot of silt. So
Moving what to?
a foot
Oh,
depth
okay,
of silt.
that much.
So we're not talking about increasing the
Okay.
depth of the pond. Bear in mind that that's a cart pond, not cart pond, and has a solid bottom. So you can't keep going.
Oh, I see.
Oh, okay, right. Fair dues. So,
So we've got to decide whether to put fish back in it or not, or to put the fish back in it.
I think that is probably correct. That's what we have
There
to
are still
discuss.
fish in it currently, are there not?
Yeah, I don't know. But they'll be very pleased because there's some water going to drop.
So the natural cycle for any body of water will be that fish eggs will be introduced on the legs of birds and by other means.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit concerned that the Environment Agency is suggesting some sort of cost recovery when naturally occurring fish become distressed in subsequent years. And obviously they're looking for us to be proactive to prevent that as far as reasonably possible. And I'm sure the gudgeon weren't introduced by the fish release. It was unlikely they were. They're more likely to have occurred, I would suggest, being introduced naturally. So if it's not fit for purpose and it was not the wish of the Parish Council to introduce in the first place, I think it'd be obviously the wrong decision to have any fish back, the wrong decision to restock the pond, and just accept that there will be natural introductions, as with any standing body of water, and deal with it on that basis. I don't think we should view it as a fishing reservoir.
Fair enough.
It's nice to watch them and I don't fish, but It's one of the features that I liked about the village, to watch the massive fish swimming there. But I accept if it's not sustainable, if it's going to happen every year or every other year, then you shouldn't put them back in. It's not kind to the fish.
But, and that's it, I think it's not kind to the fish, because the pond, as well as the Environment Agency, have told us that Parish Council has said that he was told that by the Environment Agency that the pond was fine for the fish population, not fish for the fine population, but that's not in writing anyway. And this is in writing, and this is this year, and they have told us it's not suitable.
There's a little notice that says residents are allowed to fish in that pond. Do you anticipate that there might be people who feel aggrieved that they can no longer fish in the pond because there aren't any?
There may be people who agree that they can't fish, but there are people who agree that there are fish dying, potentially.
Potentially, very much so.
Yeah.
I personally feel that it's the only sensible option is not to restock the pond. I'm trying desperately to think of any downsides to that, apart from the aesthetic of watching fish.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they keep the water clean or do anything particular like that, do they? There aren't any environmental advantages in having the fish there.
On the contrary.
It was nice to understand that the water quality was fine,
Yes, it was.
despite the way it might look.
Yeah, that's great.
So that is a positive.
So what would happen to the fish in the holding tanks at Crystal Lakes? Would they be willing to take them? Do they?
That's what we would need to find out. We would need to establish whether Crystal Lakes were happy to take them. If not, we have a number of businesses that have been supplied by the Environment Agency who we could contact to see if they would take them.
And what about the fish that are currently in the pond?
Say that be.
Are there any in there at the minute?
It's completely dry.
Yeah.
So
I think
if they
maybe
buried
it's-
themselves, they're
Holding their breath.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just, isn't that next year's problem? Because it would be fine during the winter.
We find there are fish that don't,
Yeah.
and there becomes a concern next year, and that's something.
I think we've shown due diligence, haven't we?
Yeah. And if they're, like you say, if they're
Address it.
naturally occurring, we just have to deal with that
John, you've got
as a naturally occurring thing.
You might have a problem distributing them elsewhere because people may not take them because of disease that
Yeah.
the fish may
That
have.
has been something that's been mentioned in the past, and that's why we need to approach those people to ask them whether they're taken. And that's what
So if that was the case, would you then bring them back?
that would have to be a decision to be taken at that time. We don't know whether we have to make that decision yet.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. I was just...
Yeah, no, we don't know. We don't know. And that would be an interesting conversation that we might have to have at that time. So, I'm sensing that the proposal is that we follow the Environment Agency's recommendations, that the pond is not suitable for a fish population, and on that basis, Parish Council is recommending that the pond is not restocked with the fish that were removed, that it will contact the two parishioners who have instigated the removal of the fish and discuss with them about getting the fish accepted by, in the first place, obviously Crystal Lakes, and if that isn't possible, to look at other fish companies that have been recommended to us in the list. Well, they haven't been recommended. They've provided, Environment Agency have supplied a list of people who we can speak to with no recommendations involved. It's just a list. Unfortunately, it might incur quite a bit of work. Maybe it won't. Maybe Crystal Lakes will say, yeah, no problems. So, we'll keep you posted. Oh, sorry, there's the proposal.
I was going to say, however, maybe at the bottom of it, just put if you can't relocate them, it comes back to council.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be put into the bottom line.
Would any villagers like them for their own private ponds?
Well, I think we need to discuss it again if the only option we have is to destroy the fish. We should talk again.
Quite so.
Right, so thank you. That's a proposal. Rob seconded it. All those in favour? So then we move on to the next item on this agenda, which is a consider the request to install water fountains in Reeves Ditch and the Ware. And these water fountains are designed to improve the aeration in the water. However, I refer to the previous email from the Environment Agency, which told us that the water quality was fine. So, would you want to support the installation of water fountains in Reeves Ditch and the Ware? I don't think it's necessary.
And is that more for the fish that aren't going to be there? Potentially.
To aerate the
It's-
water to improve.
It's a remedy for a situation we're now seeking to
Yeah.
Well,
happening, isn't it?
is that
Yeah.
true? Because I mean, we use aeration in the community garden with the water barrels to stop stagnation, not necessarily to support fish life. I just wonder whether it would, what we can see, the sort of, does it improve the sort of quality of
pH seems to be
the look, should we say?
pH seems to be adequate without it.
It looks awfully green and slimy though.
It doesn't look very
It
good.
doesn't look great, but if pH is there,
If the environment agency are happy with it.
yeah. I think my idea would be to park this with the fact that if
Yeah.
we have to reintroduce the fish because no one wants them, then we can consider this at the same time.
And also maybe if we can ascertain whether there are any remaining fish there. That's another factor, I suppose.
Is it
They have
costly?
survived.
So the thing there is that 4 fountains, £60 a piece, the town trust are prepared to buy them. They are to oxygenate the water for the fish. So we've had a report from the Environment Agency telling us that the oxygen levels are suitable for the fish, but the pond is not suitable for the fish. So, the
There
answer
can't have
then-
been that much water in their ponds at the 5th of August this year.
Yeah, the levels were low,
Yeah.
but there was still water in them.
They're a bit in there.
In both. I don't think the Ware has ever actually dried up completely. There's always been a bit of green water.
Can we do what Ed said and defer this matter until we've got
We decide on where the fish are going to go
Yeah.
and live.
Kind of links
Yeah,
in,
fine
doesn't
with
it?
Yeah, chicken and egg type
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. That's fine by me. Is that what we'd like to propose?
Yeah.
The proposal is that this matter is deferred until we establish what's going to happen with the Crystal Commission.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can
For those in favour? Thank you. And well, I found the garden, the chap, haven't I? I was going to say we perhaps should thank both parishioners on behalf of the Parish Council for fish rescue. But yeah, can I resolve that the Parish Council thanks both our parishioners for their actions taken in respect of rescuing the fish? I have found one of them, but it would be nice for something more from the Parish Council. So members first, all those in favour? Thank you. Right. That's those two. Right, the next one is to approve the design for the 2022-2023 LHIB to reduce the speed limit across the green from 40 to 30. So we are asked to look at the signage, correct? And where it goes.
This is not actually where the signage goes, you're just approving the road that will be covered by this 30-mile-an-hour limit.
Oh, and that's
The
the map.
original application did not include Ragslow.
Oh, okay. Is that 40 miles an hour then?
But nobody will actually go 40 miles an hour. Technically, Ragslow is currently 40 miles an hour.
So there's a map in supporting document showing the red route, which is the route from the far end of the village where it goes down to 40, I guess, all the way through to just about there, and then up Rags Road.
There was some confusion in the email, wasn't there, because I guess it's historic, but they were talking about having to buy 30 roundel signs.
The roundels are
Are
what
they
gets
the
painted.
little ones?
No, that's what gets painted on the road.
Okay.
So she's suggested putting one of those at the entrance to the village, where the 40-mile-an-hour sign is currently.
Yeah.
But that perhaps we wouldn't want them across the green because it's a natural open space and you don't want great big road markings painted across it. You would have to have repeater signs, and at the moment we don't have the location of those. But the hope would be that obviously they can go on the current posts, but that may not be the case.
We would have that they could just take off a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit sign and put a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign in its place.
The repeater signs are typically shorter, and the smaller
Smaller, like
signs.
ones that are purple.
Yeah. So that would be your typical repeater sign.
So tax plan shows the speed limit reductions almost replicates the one that Parish Council includes. Purposes of the new speed limit would be included 30 miles an hour, but
So that's Rags Row.
yeah.
So because Rags Row is less than 200 metres, they wouldn't need any repeater signs.
And if the Parish Council are happy with what is proposed, I will proceed with arranging for the public notice to be advertised for this change in the speed limit. So, everybody happy with that? I assume that. That's the proposal then, that we accept the route of the 30 mile an hour, the reduction from 40 to 30.
Excellent.
John's second. All those in favour? Thank you, that's good. Next one, Rob, you're going to do this, aren't you? Consider recommendations of the LHI working group regarding the 23-24 local highways initiative fund bid and decide upon the bid.
Yeah, I was just on the right page.
So,
Is it only in separate, it's not in the sporting documents?
so the first part of the
103.
proposal would be to address the weight limit signs that we've heard and seen are needed on the approach to Hilton from the south of the from Papworth, along the Papworth bypass initially, which is to get signage put up that actually advises commercial vehicles before they get to the roundabout and are turned up by what was Gisby's Hut, Shilpa. The cost, and we've received quotes from Cambridge County Council Highways that it would cost £2,200 to improve the signage, i.e. effectively putting a blue and black sign up before you get to the roundabout. So, as it's £2,200, and obviously we don't necessarily have £2,200, we thought that should be part of the LHI proposal for 23-24.
I've got a family page now, so I can give...
And you want to do the next bit?
Yeah, shall I just give an overview of the survey and the results? So we gave a number of means of providing a survey on this topic to ask parishioners what they thought should be done and what the areas of concern were. We've got 82 responses covering approximately 85 people from what I could ascertain from the redacted documents I received. Summarising the many points, and there were around 210 individual suggestions on those 82 response sheets. The condensing those or summarising those, the areas of concern in approximate order were Potton Road speeding, zebra crossing visibility, Gravely Way, Potton Road, High Street Junction, NNU paths, inadequate HGV signage, particularly the Papworth end was noted, Ashley development impact on safety and parking on Church Lane, additional crossings near the pub and shop and also at the Gravely Way Junction area, Church Lane parking, pavement and path improvement for mobility and disabled vehicles and people, and the Gravely Way bollard visibility. There were a number of others, but that's where we got multiple results. And most people provided a solution rather than an area of concern. And I think the one thing that stood out, particularly where speeding and reducing speeding was the area of concern, was that there seemed to be an overwhelming theme running that people felt that physical speed measures were required rather than signage or painting on roads, which they've considered had been ineffective from what's been employed so far. I'll just give you, I've got a big table of the score for each kind of thing, but I'll just perhaps read you the top 10 to just give you the gist. Speed humps or tables on Potton Road was scored a count of 27 requests for those, with 2 objections. 20 mph speed limit within the village, 23 requests, 1 objection. Priority narrowing on Potton Road, which is where you have to give way to the traffic from the other direction. 15 requests for that with 1 objection. The improvement of the Gravely Way Potton Road High Street Junction, 14, no objections. NME Path to Fenstanton, 12, no objections. Zebra Crossing Speed Table, 11, no objections. Parking improvement on Church Lane, 10, no objections. Zebra Crossing signage improvement and halo lights and all the things that can be done to make it more visible, 9.
Mr. Come on,
13. Oh, thank you. Yes, I did. Speed camera on Potton Road, 13, in the middle, right in the middle of those. I'll leave it there. So I think, discussion with the working group on the matter, our recommendation or our preference or recommendation to the council would be that, as Peter said, we should invest in the additional HGV signage, and the other thing that seemed to fit within budget and would scored highly in the requests would be a speed table on Potton Road at the zebra crossing, thereby addressing to a degree the zebra crossing visibility and safety, but also putting a physical measure onto Potton Road at some point that would hopefully reduce speed. So that was our recommendation to the council.
One of the benefits about the zebra crossing table was that it would get the zebra crossing repainted. Or CCC have not repainted the zebra crossing at the moment. So that was an extra thing, benefit that came out of that one. So what's next, Rob?
Well, that's for discussion, I suppose.
So we've got a timetable of where the LHI would go through.
Yes.
Which says application window opens on the 3rd of October, application window closes on the 18th of November.
I would just add that that is the proposed timeline, and I haven't seen the formal timeline yet. That's the proposal from the Highways Committee minutes.
Lovely, thank you. And then the feasibility studies undertaken December to March, panel meetings March, April, report June, programme design consultation with applicants in July 23 to February 24, and pricing and construction March to July 2024. So if that was the timeline, you'd tend to know in June 23 whether your application has been prioritised, and probably between July 2023 and February 2024, maybe around the autumn time, when they'll make a decision.
No, the report to committee, the prioritised list is the one with the red dotted line.
Yeah.
So you'll know whether you've got it or not.
After
so
that
for the current 40 to 30, we're currently in that programming, design and consultation phase.
Yeah.
So it's consultation with applicants to say, is this exactly what you want? Now that we've got the design, you've got to agree it before they can then take it to pricing and construction.
Lovely, thank you.
So you'll only go to that phase if you're above that red dotted line.
Yeah. And an LHI bid has a cap of £15,000.
Yes. So I think the area of perhaps for discussion, where there are some different viewpoints, I think, is around whether we've met objective 3 for the bid.
I guess you've got the
You
objectives.
need to just approve the proposal separately from that.
Okay,
Okay. Right, so the proposal.
that's what our recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So any questions so far? No questions on where the PC would get £1,370 for this proposal? No? No? Okay. Thought that might be a consideration. The PC hasn't got £1,370 to put to this proposal. Okay. The PC would have to write that in, if this was the approved proposal that we were going to go forward with the LHI, the PC would have to incorporate that into its next year's budget.
Thank you for
Which
clarifying that.
is another consideration that you should have at this time, I think, because if at that stage you're looking at there needing to be an increase in precept, you have to think about what impact that would have on people. At the minute, all we're reading about is a cost of living crisis, and things you should be bearing in mind, I think. And people rather be able to do X than see Y. Just something you need to consider in your deliberations about these proposals.
So we're considering what is desirable rather than what is achievable.
Yes, I think that would be fair to say, Claire. We would desire to see, given the responses so far, the overriding request, if you like, from the parishioners is that something is done with Potton Road. Because there are a number of things that people have suggested to happen on Potton Road, big speed cameras, narrowing, 20 mile an hour speed limit within the village. I've got to ask, talk about that, how it's going, but they haven't been meeting, so they won't know. Speed humps, tables, so lots of things along Potton Road that people, village-wide have said needs to be done on Potton Road. So the next thing, 2 recommendations coming up, there aren't there? So the proposal is, are the Parish Council going to put its LHI bid, take its LHI bid further on those 2 proposals? Proof signage for the HGV thing, and the raised zebra crossing on Potton Road.
One point on the first element, was there any muddying of the water in terms of options from the report we had from our councillor with regards to conversations about signage, which he's already engaged with? Was that indicative of a funding stream that he was accessing?
And I think it's worth us speaking to him.
Because clearly that would then have a bearing on the proposal and of course the cost.
Yeah.
I guess going back to the point about the my observations on the minimum contribution, we embarked upon the LHI bid process, hoping that it would identify key areas, which I think it has, physical location and an indication of options, preferences, if you like, within the raft that were offered. So I think it was incumbent on us, as we embarked on that, to know that there would be a monetary impact. So I think, to answer that important question, that would then mean retrenching elsewhere.
Quite potentially.
Or the precept question. So I think you're right to raise that, and I think it's a valid point, and it's something that we implicitly accepted, didn't we, when we embarked upon the bidding process.
But it needs to be for the wider council as well.
Absolutely.
And that's why I mentioned
yeah,
because we talked about it.
Very important.
But our other 3 colleagues here tonight weren't at that meeting. Andy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, some input on data, I guess, from the devices we've got. We've done a survey, you know, of the village a number of times, and there really isn't a speeding problem around the zebra crossing. We've put the speed indicators there, the speed measurers there a number of times, The speeding is absolutely at the south end of the village by a long shot. So I'm just thinking of mitigation of speeding. The zebra crossing probably isn't the best place to do it because there isn't a problem there, and by the time they've got to the other end, they're doing outrageous speeds, and the data shows that at least 25% of all traffic's doing over 35, and about 10% is doing over 40 at that point, at that dangerous junction. So I was just saying, from the road safety perspective, from the speeding problem, the problem is at the south end of the village.
It's very interesting, and certainly as I use that junction frequently, I'm very wary of it now, because I haven't exactly had a near miss, but I can imagine it happens. So it really race down there, particularly because it's a hill.
Yeah,
It's not much of a hill, but it's certainly...
We've got a lot of data, and in fact today I've been talking to the camera unit data analyst because I talked to the camera operator when they were down there. They just happened to be down there collecting the data, and the camera van was down there, so I had a chance to chat to him about it. He caught 13, I think, at 11:30 in the morning, doing over 40 there. But the point there is that that's where they sit the van, because that's where the most dangerous spot is.
I think,
And I'm supplying a load of data from that device. We've got, of course, it's been there for a long time now, to help them focus where they're going to put that.
It's a difficult junction.
Yeah.
Compared to the North Village.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got that one sitting outside the paddocks, which is there pretty much all the time. We use that for collecting the volume and the size of the vehicle, so we now know how many lorries are going through, and it's a lot lower. I mean, hugely, massively lower.
What we find on Speedwatch concurs with what you say, Andy. I think the point of us choosing that was because I think to solve the problem effectively, you need a number of solutions, of which we can't afford to do in one LHI bid. The point was we have this data and we can use it over time and with other initiatives to roll.
Yeah, when I talked to Inspector Moody last week, and I just asked him, we're talking about the enforcement of the weight limit, but also about speeding. He just quick discussion. The point there was the only way you're going to stop it is physically, and speed humps are probably the way forward, and nobody really particularly likes those. But his opinion was, at that point, is that you need to physically stop vehicles going fast, and that's probably speed humps.
But I think the reason for our recommendation was because it touched perhaps on the Potton Road speed hump thing, but it also was very much about safety and the visibility of the zebra crossing. So we felt by doing that, you offset some the key areas with 3 or 4 different lines
I can
on
see
that table.
You're actually introducing a note of caution into people.
It was
They
difficult.
slow down.
Yeah, it was.
With the pricing of all the speed reduction things, we couldn't put everything in. And the idea, I think, if I'm correct if I'm wrong, was that we were looking at this LHI, something to put in for this LHI bid, which was this, and then to look on a wider basis of what could be done potentially. Is that right?
Could I just ask,
Cool.
how are the parishioners going to be informed of the results of the survey and the conclusions? Are we going to put a special notice out, or will
We're
that
going
just
to
be
put it in,
expected?
we'll put something up, because they do deserve to know what's happening following, because 80 odd people are actually taking part.
They need to know.
It's not the biggest number, but it's a number.
Is that something we need to clarify how we're going to do that? Or do
Yeah, if you want
we, do we
to...
just write a version of this for Spectrum or something?
If you want to put a resolution as to what you want published, then I can put that out
Okay.
into a Spectrum. And,
So there's a number of resolutions coming up.
Yeah.
First one is, as a parish council, are we proposing that our LHI bid goes forward on approved signage for the 7.5-ton weight limit and the raised zebra crossing? Yeah? Rob seconded that. All those in favour? The next proposal is that we do publish in Spectrum and on our website results of the survey that was conducted in the village, so the parishioners can see what was suggested. John seconded that. All those in favour? The third proposal, I believe, is about whether or not we believe that there should be a further survey, specifically perhaps for those people on Potton Road, if I'm reading between the lines properly, that asking them whether they think that this is a good idea, because they are the people that will be most affected by some sort of table on because they live on Potton Road. Or do we consider that the survey that is being done meets objective 3 of the LHI bid? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of doing on Potton Road has pros and cons. Obviously, it cuts down the focus group, but I don't know whether should people on Potton Road be able to decide on behalf of the whole village whether that's a good idea or not. I think you have to ask all or nothing if you just because obviously there's people on Potton Road, which I'm one, may have more concern about the impact, but it doesn't necessarily would be a consensus across the whole village, if you see where I'm coming from. So,
And Nicola, you're telling us that the objective 3 needs to show local support for the requested improvement, whereas our previous consultation was about what you want.
Yeah.
We're now saying this is what we're suggesting, so you're saying that we should go out and survey that specifically.
The County Council advice says that you need a clear indication of stakeholder support for or against a proposed solution.
So,
it's my view that what we've done satisfies that, because I guess the argument against it is it's more subjective. It wasn't a case of do you want this or do you want this. My concern is that with 82 responses from the number of houses in Hilton, if we keep on pumping out survey after survey before making a decision, are we just going to get to a point where people are surveyed?
however, so as a councillor, I think we should, because I think this is a specific item, and people might not like the idea of a table. I know that when previously speed bumps were suggested, or road measurements in Great Way suggested, there was a large number of people who didn't agree with what was being proposed, and that was quite far down the process. So I think we need to.
Do we not perhaps, the alternative I see is that if we're going to publish the results of the survey, and we could go on to say what we believe is the correct course of action, can we not then invite comments, shall we say, to the Spectrum article and to the website,
I'd like to see.
and then record, and that's because
I was just going to say the same thing.
that's made it public and gives people the opportunity to object.
It seems
or
very sensible
comment
to do
on
it
it.
that way to me.
Would that satisfy the need?
Potentially, so you're then going to put it out there that that's the way you've done your consultation. It says there you've just got to give.
Okay, yeah, and then we have a deadline date for people to reply by.
Would you like a website form again, similar to the last one?
Yeah, John, you will say.
Well, I was just going to make the point that I don't think a handful of people objecting would necessarily would be unexpected. I'm sure that the authorities would expect an element of whatever proposal. I mean, we've got objections on the survey to speed limits, we've got objections to 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, and they had an objection to priority narrowing. So you will always have people who object. I think the key thing, my understanding, is that there's the consultation, and we have sought the public's opinion, and if we had to produce evidence to that effect, the fact that some, as you allude to, Rob, may say not outside my house, we do already have the data, and then as Claire says, it's quite right that we, as part of that publicising process, that could then double hat as the consultation.
Or in fact,
you can also
there's an enormous number of complaints, we may then get concerned and then decide to do a full survey to get them.
And I think we've got time, given that the application window closes Friday the 18th of November. We've got time to do something, and although we might not get it back in time, we won't get it back in time for the beginning of October meeting, we will get it back in time for the beginning of the November meeting, to be able to put the application by the 18th, providing that stays the same. Yeah. And
Could I suggest you also include the PC Traffic Working Group, which was formed because it's got a broad set of experience and knowledge to this as well?
that will be up to the working group.
I suggest the working group, they do the working group.
And put something on the notice boards as well.
Yeah, notice boards, website,
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah. So it's all on everything.
So give it them everywhere because
Yes.
So that's the third proposal in this, I believe.
Yeah.
That we advertise it on all those media platforms. We invite comment back with that form that you suggested by. So we have, so Spectrum arrived in my house today, being the 5th of September. So I don't propose that I would get it before the 5th of October, perhaps. So you then got to allow people a week to reply, because not everybody's going to see it on social media. Some people are going to wait for their, will read in their Spectrum when it comes through. Some people have read it before, but could we suggest then that we have a closing date of 17th of October? Gives us a chance to digest the stuff that comes back in before the Parish Council meeting, which will actually be on the 7th of November. Yeah. How's that sound? There's a proposal in there somewhere, isn't there?
The proposal is that the proposed LHI bid is advertised on the notice board, Spectrum, website and Facebook page, and comments are invited by director of outcome via a website form with a closing date of 17th of October.
That's a proposal.
Yeah.
Seconded by Sarah. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Right, okay. Right, the next item on the agenda is to discuss emails received from HAT regarding improved HGV waiver. Okay. At this moment in time, I want just to extend a big thanks to Andy and Ken and other people involved in HGV. They've done a sterling job, and I've seen from information that's passed back that the number of HGVs that have come through the village has reduced significantly, which is brilliant because obviously many years people have tried to get an HGV ban through the village. It was agreed, it's been put in place, and significant reduction, but there are still HGVs coming through the village, and your efforts in contacting all the people that have breached the weight restriction and making Google aware and all those companies is very much appreciated across the village. And as you've seen, we are putting that signage through in the LHI. Although I would add a caveat to that, it's a bit late, but there was a comment about that John said that Doug's looking at that as well. So we should just, although we go forward with what we've said, if Doug comes up and says, it's done, fine. I know it isn't an instant response of here's the signage, but we have to go through the process. And hopefully, at some day, in the future, we will see improved signage on there. And thank you for your continued actions in that at this time. So I think we...
A proposal for thanks from the Parish Council, is that thanks?
Yeah. Let's have a proposal for thanks from the Parish Council, seconded, and everybody's in favour. Thank you.
As you know, it's a big team, Peter. I think there's 40 odd hours so far curbside by the HGV Watch team. So
It's very good.
yeah.
And thank everybody involved, because it is, it's brilliant. And the effect, I don't know, you go through the village and occasionally think, well, what are they doing here? The HGV
It's a quick one. Simon made a comment. He said, I was in the pub, and he said it's terrible. He said, I can hear the HGVs, when it comes past. And I said, well, that's not good. He said, no, it was just so continuous.
Yeah.
I never knew. Now I hear one. I think, oh God, there's an HGV coming past. And I think, you're right, it's very telling.
So hopefully that has dealt with item 104. So, next item on the agenda is 105, Hunts Forum Health Inequalities Funding. And I'm going to ask Nicola to tell us all about this, because she's explained it to me at least twice in the stories.
So I did try and put all my thoughts down in a report, but it's not very clear. I apologise for that.
That's fine.
So basically the NHS have a pot of money under the new integrated care system, which they have to spend on communities addressing health inequalities within the community. The NHS have realised that they don't know as much about the communities as they would like to, so they opened this funding pot open for bids. HDC money, it will have to be done at fairly short notice, so they bid using their recognised organisations under the Hunts Forum. So they've received approval for their bid of £250,000. So I'll just backtrack slightly and talk about the Hunts Forum and the 14 recognised organisations. So during COVID, Hilton Parish Council signed up as a recognised organisation under the Hunts Forum, which meant that where HDC were coordinating volunteer needs and coordinating people that had needs and matching those up with those organisations that were providing support, and they also provided additional support, things like safeguarding training and advice about communicating with people. So their support was invaluable, and it then led to more support for our parishioners. So as I say, there are 14 of these recognised organisations. So this 250 grand is going to be distributed amongst those 14 organisations based on the size of the organisation. Some of the money has been used to appoint a project manager who has been appointed on a year's contract full time, and also a communications executive. Unfortunately, we've got Anna and Hannah, just to make life fun. So the remainder of the money is then, as I say, going to be distributed out. Hilton Parish Council have been offered £2,500. So this is the initial tranche of money to be used to assess the need and work out, design a project to meet a health need in the village. Now that could be as simple as exercise for older people. It could be you identify the need is over 50s men, so you organise a walking football group. There have been projects such as minibus being laid on to get people to swimming clubs or aquafit sessions for those people that can't drive. There have been some really strange ones organised for things like ghost hunting. A particular community that had a large population of people who were looking to return to work, and through their assessment they discovered that this particular group of people also had an interest in ghost hunting, so they organised a ghost hunting club, which also took time to rewrite CVs and do interview prep and assist this particular cohort back into work. So I'm not suggesting that we're going to do ghost hunting in Hilton. So this £2,500 will be used to organise some kind of either survey or community event to establish what the perceived need is in Hilton. We will also have access to the District Council's data on well-being, population statistics, that sort of thing, to then put together a proposal for a project. Now the money has to be allocated by June of next year, but it doesn't necessarily have to be spent. So any remaining money from the £2,500 can be put into the main project fund as well, and we can bid for up to £8,000 for the main project. Now, as I say, that could be, if you were looking at hiring a minibus and it's going to cost you £500 a year, well that's then 16 years worth of minibus hire. So as I say, it can be looked at as a long-term project. And there is a particular form to fill in, and it will then go to a panel for assessment, but it'll actually be presented to the panel by the project manager. So we've got all of their support in writing a survey, running a community event, writing a proposal itself. So, as I say, I think that's about it, really.
And the £2,500 that would come up, first of all, will cover your hours in putting that together.
Yes.
So there would not be any
No
financial
cost to
burden
us.
on the Parish Council. And would I be right in saying that there was, during lockdown, some money made available that paid for some outside clergy classes?
That was the Living Sport grant
Yeah.
that came from School England. So it
And-
was a separate pot of money.
And that was well attended, but when people had to pay for it, it wasn't well attended.
There was not quite so much interest. So there was Tai Chi classes and there was Keep Fit on the Green.
Yeah.
And there was also the Rabble rounders for young people.
So that money could be directed in that way.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
Yep. So actively, obviously, we've got access to the HDC Active Lifestyles team. So as I say, if you decided that your cohort that you wanted to address was over 50s men and walking football was something they were interested in, then HDC could come and run a walking football club, and the cost would be covered by this
But
grant.
I noted that you weren't, any future monies could not be put into the sports pavilion.
No. So it could be used for a capital build. So if you said that actually what you need is a playground, so then £8,000 is not going to cover a playground. But it could be used towards a capital build in that way if you identified that was your need. But the refurbishment of the cricket pavilion is not going to address a health inequality need.
Could you
What
have equipment for
about
it?
disabled access or something like that for
No, no. So I looked into, that was one of my first questions, is whether we could use this pot money for that. And the answer is no.
Is mental health included
Yeah,
in this
Yes.
as well?
yeah.
I
The
think,
focus is on well-being and sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? We've all spoken about physical activities, when in fact, a very significant community issue is going to be mental health. And I would suggest that lone working or home working, being in a village, which with poor public transport, that might be also something rather than purely the physical. We mustn't forget that.
We have found through the community garden and application for grants
Yeah.
that people, organisations look very favourably on us
Well-being.
when we mention well-being, when we mention loneliness and depression, and we have been very successful. We should have over here because we've mainly had initiative. We've been very successful because of those things being actually favourable.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Thank
One
you.
of the other suggestions or of other projects that have been run previously was a dog cafe. So it was to address loneliness, but they found that people wouldn't come to a community cafe. But if you made it a dog-friendly cafe and they could bring their dog, they then were more confident in coming, because it wasn't a come and be with other lonely people. It was come and let your dog meet other dogs.
And have a fish.
So we can have a fish
Fish
cafe.
supper.
I'm not suggesting we serve them carp. But yeah, as you say, addressing loneliness. The problem with when you talk about addressing loneliness is that lonely people don't want to be put with other lonely people. If you say, here's a loneliness cafe, no one's going to come. If you said, here's a crib club, because actually we want to be addressing loneliness in men over 70, and actually they've got interest in crib and dominoes, we're going to have a pub games club. And therefore you could use this money to hire the village hall and set up this kind of club.
So are we or will you going to come up with some suggestions, or are we going to have an open meeting for commissioners to make suggestions for you? I mean, I just throw into the pot the thought that other villages have lunch clubs for isolated people, and they seem to be very successful in their neighbourhoods once a month. But that would need some funding to set it up and lots of volunteers.
Yeah.
It's not a
But I
small
mean,
thing to take
for £8,000 you could employ someone to run it. You could employ someone to do the admin instead of employing me to do it. Yeah, that potential is there within that.
And can we have more than one thing?
Yes, yes.
So
So
it
if
could be
you,
two or three.
if you identify that you've got a need in a 12 to 15 age group,
Yeah.
and you've also got a need
Over
in
50s.
over 50s
something
men,
or-
oh, I
Yes.
keep picking on men.
I know,
That's
but
what-
that's
I'm
what
over 50.
Sorry,
What's
sorry.
the goal for?
Men
Teenagers
aged 40 to
like
49
Yes.
have a need, then you can say, right, we're going to run this
No, I
project
feel
here,
it's
we're going to run that
So you
project
can have a couple
within your
going.
£8,000.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had something with the kids and some holidays, teenagers? Like, these week's great, it's 1 week, but the older kids.
Yeah, so you identify through your survey or your open meeting or however you want to run it, that's where your need is, then yeah, I mean, we keep talking about older people and loneliness, but actually if you identify that that's your need, then yeah, absolutely.
And I think the other thing, and it was on the news this morning, food banks running out of food because of the financial duress, and the chair's already alluded with reference to the precept question. There will be, we can reasonably foresee over the next 1 to 2 years, increasing number of people suffering stress and mental health issues because they're struggling to pay their bills and keep the lights on. So I think it's likely during this period to be a growing issue for all communities,
Yeah.
that particular aspect of
So we may be
health.
thinking of particular funds and initiatives that we can offer to people in the village.
So the first proposal is to accept this funding and approve signing of the memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
And so that's the first proposal. Seconded by John. And everyone in favour? And the next proposal is, I suppose the next course of action is that by June 2023, we need to come up with, as Parish Council, some answers or proposals. Would that be correct?
It needs to be through a community engagement exercise.
Yeah, but the deadline for that is June 2023.
The funding has to be assigned by then, yes.
Okay, so what's our deadline for putting our proposal in?
I don't know.
Okay, fair dues. And once you get hold of the money, we will discuss, you will come up with some suggestions because you'll be able to allocate some time to be paid for by this money to come up with some ideas of what we need to do. Correct? Or not correct?
The £2,500 we release once the memorandum of understanding is signed.
Excellent.
Is it worth engaging other I just think, if you do an open meeting, well, you don't know how many people are coming, but then if you choose not to do what some people have requested, might not go down very well, potentially. Some people will be unhappy, like, you're always going to get a few people against something. Do we think about engaging our community groups already? So, Village Hall Committee, the garden, the
WI.
toddler group, the WI,
Yeah.
and have representatives from that to come together rather than, just initially, rather than a free-for-all.
It's a forum.
Yeah, so we can see where, because that covers quite a range of people and ages, and then sort of move on from there. Maybe at some point we do want to engage absolutely everybody, but maybe start there, see if we can pinpoint something, 2 or 3, because then you could get young and old coming out of that.
And that's the proposal. Do you want it as a proposal that there be a working group or system?
Yeah, I think that's where I was trying to.
Yeah.
And would you like the Parish Council to set that group?
I think initially, yeah, you should appoint
So the
2 or 3
proposal is
councillors.
a couple of councillors, please, 3 councillors, to form a working group to explore with Nicola this forum of engagement with other community groups within the village.
I'm happy to.
Claire, Sarah, Ed, Rob, there you go. Underline yourselves. Got to decide on this. Good, thank you. My votes. 107. Review the inspection report for the Jubilee programme and discuss and decide upon recommendations. That's not it. That's not it. This one. So, looks need have come along and inspect the programme, which I always find interesting. The people who, the equipment supply side, should come and inspect their own equipment. Never mind. So they've inspected and have felt that it's all pretty good this time. Last time they recommended a bit about fencing, was that right?
There was a twist to the basket seat, and they said the fencing was 4 centimetres too close to the seesaw. They haven't picked up on that this time.
So this time it's wood.
They're
There's
concerned
some damage
about-
to fence sections.
Yeah,
That's-
so that's the fence between the playground and Grove House.
Yeah, we know that. But that we knew about the house behind.
They're worried about the surface, the floor surface.
The wood surface.
Where the,
It's
where the
the
gravel.
Under the gate.
Under the gate, and the growing of grass through the batting, because that could be a trip hazard.
But having looked at the full report, they do a sort of risk assessment rate, don't they? And everything is
low.
very low risk green, so I don't think.
It just looks a bit unsightly.
Probably quite dry as well,
Yeah.
and burnt.
Yeah.
So the only thing I wonder is again that we share the report with the handyman, who does go into the playground, does he not, and attends to various parts, and if he feels that there's work done that he can't do, he comes back to us, and we address it. Okay. So the proposal on item 108 is that we accept the, 107, sorry, we accept the report for the GB playground and discuss with village maintenance man. Okay, there's a proposal. Lots of seconds. Choose. All those in favour? That's everybody. Thank you very much. The next item is to discuss and decide upon entering into a 3-year agreement with Ixley for the playground inspection, which will fix the price at 2022 prices.
Yes, same price as this year. Is 120.
£144. But is that including?
That's 120 plus VAT.
Yeah. So there's a proposal. I recommend that we accept that. Proposed, accepted, or proposed, seconded, and recommended. You read. The next item on the agenda is one that Andy alluded to earlier, is that Hilton Parish and Traffic have requested that the Parish Council purchase replacement batteries for the vehicle monitoring devices being the SID and the data logger, if that's a good way of describing it. And there are 4 batteries required, £50 a pop, plus, no, it's £53.38 excluding VAT. So it's £213.52 excluding VAT, but of course, providing they were ordered through the Parish Council, you have to order them.
Yes.
To get an invoice in the Parish Council name.
Yes.
They would come, we would be able to get the VAT back, which would obviously be a benefit to the village. Yeah. There's no recommendation, is there? So, we are requesting the Parish Council kindly purchase replacement batteries for the devices to enable their continued reliable use for the benefit of the village and future leadership. Has anybody got any questions or points or objections or agreements?
Just wondering, looking at it from the Finance Committee point of view, is this a sum which is already
No,
attended?
it's not budgeted.
I was asking in hope rather than confidence.
It is a non-budgeted item, but it is for the benefit.
Of course it is, yes. I don't dispute that. I
You
just,
have to take it out of your general reserves,
Yeah.
which are already low.
They're not up to the 6-month figure that we should have for reserves.
yeah.
Just out of interest, how long do these batteries last, Andy?
From experience, about 2 years with the current rotational use of them. They are deep recharge batteries designed for it, and it's the same model that was supplied with it that I've suggested, the Victorian ones. So I think about 2 years with the current continuous
The data
use.
that's extracted is shared with Speedwatch on a monthly
Yeah,
basis.
and I've just sent a whole load of data to the police today for them to do sort of focused targeting as well.
And does the parish council get, is it on that circulation as well?
The can be. I send it out. I send it out weekly. The summaries of each to it. I'm happy to send it to Nicola if she wants it as well.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'll send a weekly report, and you'll see, all the people that are on it will see that almost every week now it's a battery has died. 24 hours lost, 48 hours lost, and it's just becoming, we're getting in.
I think it shows due fiscal diligence to, to complete that circle with the feedback for the benefit of the village.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add Nicola to that, like I did with Speedwatch and HAT.
How long would they take you to get? Or how long would it take you to
get the
get batteries?
batteries.
Are there supply chain issues?
I don't know whether there's supply chain issues.
Sorry. So the proposal is that the Parish Council agreed to purchase those batteries on behalf of HAT, and you're happy for the...
Yeah, no, it makes sense because of the VAT perspective.
It's invoiced to the Parish Council on the basis that data is also shared with Nicola. Rob seconded it. Everybody in favour? Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, the next item on the agenda is to consider the option to opt out of the small authority audit appointment, central external auditor appointment arrangements. If you want that repeated, read it. So as a parish council of the size that we are, we have to do 2 audits per year. We have an internal auditor, who was until recently Gary Fordham, and had done that for many years, but decided to step down. We use SLCC local clerk arrangement.
Internal auditor service.
And we also have to have an external auditor. And for the size of the parish council that we have, that has been, we're in a collective bargaining position where PKR Little John have done it. Who?
PKF.
PKF Little John. They're closely related to PKR, not quite the same company. And they have been doing it at £220 a year, £200 plus VAT a year, external audit, and the internal audit has been around that sort of figure as well. There are some regulations that say we have to spend time at parish council. No, that say we have got the option to opt out of that collective bargaining thing and appoint our own external auditor. So the plus side of that would be we would have control. The downside to that would be that it would probably cost us a lot more and it would be outside the collective bargaining. Yeah. So the proposal is that we don't use the option to opt out, but we stay in the opt-in. Seconded by Rob. Those in favour? Right, at the last parish council meeting we were given we discussed a bill that had come in for extra cuts on the green, and this was the fuel element of, and it was felt that this wanted to be checked. Right? So we had a reply from Ian, said it's quite straightforward. As you are aware, extra hours was the preparation of the green prior to the Jubilee weekend, which we felt okay. But the point we were making was that these extra cuts were done without the green or request from the parish council to do it. And then the fuel, however, relates to extra cuts he's been doing, preparing the playing area for Friday evening games, especially the croquet. All came out of discussion. Last year and this, John had been carrying out, our contractor had been carrying out these extra cuts, and he has not sought any payment for this. He's been doing out of the goodness of his heart, pointed out that fuels were going up, and he wanted to put in a one-off invoice to cover the fuel, and that is the one-off invoice to cover the fuel.
May I comment? Just
You may.
I have to say it's been absolutely brilliant for the games evening. Croquet has been much improved, and the attendance is double of last year's as well. And croquet has become the game of choice amongst the attendees, and it has really been well maintained and been a real benefit to the parish, all those involved in using the games.
Good.
So,
The proposal is that we pay this fuel and maintain the services of this good-hearted contract.
I think the proposal is that we will pay this on as a one-off option, but if there are extra cuts required to the contract, they should be discussed with the Parish Council beforehand, because we do have a budget. I know we've blown the budget tonight by spending another 200 quid on that particular thing, but if it is needed that the green is cut on a more regular basis, then we have to consider the cost implications of that, and whether those enjoying the croquet would like to make a donation to it, perhaps. Don't know. Could be, I'm thinking that.
There were the two elements. And firstly, it was just the verification, isn't it? That
Yeah.
the issue that was raised.
Yeah.
And secondly, then, that the protocol was observed as per the contract.
Yes.
For future additional works, it should be pre-approved rather than post.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we've got the clarity of how the situation occurred. It's explained here
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the conversation between Ian and
So the proposal is, I guess, we pay the £26.85, but also advise of future cuts.
Mm.
If there's a cost involved in future cuts, they should be agreed before they are done.
And we did say that in the last, we have
We did
already
say
agreed that in the last meeting.
We
didn't
want
we?
to make it clear.
Okay.
That's a proposal. Hands going up now. Ed and John seconded that. And Rob. All those in favour? That's everybody in favour. Right. The next item on the agenda is the flood conference. There is a flood conference on Thursday, the 22nd of September, aimed at the county's community flood groups. It takes place between 10 and 5 o'clock. There is no cost implication. All the places are free. The clerk has reserved 2 spaces. Recommendation is that the clerk and the emergency officer, John, attend this conference.
I have checked my diary. I am free. I will be willing to attend.
Thank you. So that's the proposal, is that the clerk and the emergency officer attend this conference and report back. Claire's going to second that. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the PALC Share the Vision, Shape the Future annual conference. Costs £75 per person. So this is a conference from the CAPALC. Anyone want to hazard a guess at what CAPALC stands for?
Would you like to know?
Yes.
Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Association of Local Councils.
There we go. Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Association of Local Councils conference is taking place. Usually takes at White Boston Lakes, yes.
Yeah, White Boston again. Excellent fish and chips.
Was this the one where the television personality attended last time?
Jackie Reaver was on. It was the keynote speaker last year.
Yes. So, the clerk would like to attend?
Yes, I find it useful.
you just like the fish and chips.
I don't eat fish.
Pretty bad
I was
fish.
just wanted to get the fish and chips excellent. I went for a bag of sausage, but just thought with the theme of tonight's meeting.
So that's the, so within the budget there is some money for training. So the proposal is, no, discuss. Would you like the clerk to take? Is the first one before we can form a proposal.
That makes sense.
So the proposal is the clerk attends this conference. Seconded by Rob. All those in favour? There you go. Enjoy, digest and report. Enjoy the chips. The next item is the poppy appeal. The request is today for the Parish Council to donate £60 to the Bridging Poppy appeal, which is...
The request was for a donation. I've put the
okay.
previous cost is
Yeah.
£60 and that's what you've budgeted.
And that's what budgeted. So, proposal is to donate £60 to the Royal British Legion.
Seconded.
And it's budgeted.
All in favour? There we go. Thank you. The next item is to consider a proposal to send a note of thanks to the members of the Village Hall Arrangement Committee who are stepping down after many years of service. 5 members of the Village Hall Management Committee are stepping down, some who have served for many years. I guess that means some haven't served for many years, but I believe everybody there has served for many years. And we have a breakdown of the remaining members. So there's an AGM on Monday the 19th of September when the new committee will be elected. And I take it the new committee will become trustees of the Village Hall. Yeah. So Heather has suggested that or proposed that we send a note of appreciation to those members stepping down. Seconded, and all in favour? And of course, you're more than welcome anybody to attend the AGM on the 19th of September. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and decide upon membership renewal to the Society of Local Council Clerks, £171. Any ideas on what it was last year? It was, in my few minutes that I had at home this evening, I thought, oh, what was it last year?
Last year it was £166, an increase of 5.
Was that in our budget? Anyway, the Society of Local Council Clerks give great support to our clerk on legal and administrative issues.
Yeah.
And it is one of those, it is one membership that we should renew. So the proposal is that we renew membership at the SLCC at a cost of £120. Seconded, and all in favour. Do you need initials at 3 seconds?
No, not unless you ask
So
for a
why-
recorded vote.
Okay.
You used to, but you changed your standing
That's what I was
orders.
thinking. Why do I have to keep seconded?
You have to answer a proposal
Yeah.
and secretary, it's just not recorded anymore.
But we have on every occasion. The next item on the agenda is to discuss and decide upon taking the NALC, National Association of Local Councils, Civility and Respect Pledge. So, right. So this pledge is something that is going through by now to try and get backing by the government to act in law, correct?
Yes, so the eventual aim is that the code of conduct will have teeth. There will be sanctions on councillors for breach of the code of conduct. So currently, if you breach the code of conduct and you report it to the district council's monitoring officer, the most severe sanction that the monitoring officer can impose is a recommendation for training. There is no dismissal.
Recommendation for training.
Yeah, and they can't even force training, they can only recommend that the councillor attends training. So if you look at the likes of Hanforth, where there was horrendous bullying of the clerk going on, there is no sanction against those councillors. There's no suspension or dismissal of councillors for breaches of the code of conduct. So that's what the Civility and Respect Project are working on, or towards. So this pledge is basically saying that you will uphold the code of conduct and that you have the right governance arrangements in place for good behaviour, both in several directions, between officers and members, but also between members and parishioners to members and officers as well.
And at the moment we have got a number of policies and a code of conduct which cover those sort of, but don't have teeth.
Yes. Yeah. So the only thing that you don't have on this governance arrangements is a dignity at work policy.
So, when Nicola and I were discussing this, I thought, well, get it enacted, then come back to us and we'll sign up to it. Or we could be pioneering and sign up to it to support so that there are more numbers that now can go and say X number of parish councils signed up to this. They want to see it in place. So,
Well, I want it to happen, so surely taking the pledge is helping the cause, isn't it?
Agreed.
and do we have to stand up in front of you to take the pledge?
No,
Sure.
it's not a
Okay.
girl guiding initiative.
I needed to be certain. So the proposal, I guess, from what we've heard, is that Hilton Parish Council will sign a pledge in support of this worthy campaign. Seconded? And everybody's in favour.
What do you want to do about the dignity at work policy?
No, that's not the agenda.
No, but it's part of this civility and respect pledge that you have a dignity at work policy in place.
Okay. We need to get a dignity at work policy in place.
Isn't that covered by the NOAM UDOP that we talked to us about before we started?
The known principles
The
are
known
what
principles.
underpins the code of conduct. But as I say, there are no teeth. So yeah, the known principles say that you will act with honesty and integrity. If you don't do so, then there are some teeth under the Local Act in the fact of if you fail to declare an interest, but that's very specific to interest. So if you did not act with integrity towards an officer or a member of the public, then there's no teeth.
And I do apologise because I didn't read down to the bottom of the page. So there is a next proposal on this item is that the policy group draft a dignity at work document. I'm just trying to find that. Okay, so that's me, Heather, Ian, and Sarah. So we need to meet as a working group to look at the dignity at work policy draft that you
Yes.
So the other proposal is that the policy group will draft a dignity at work policy to bring back to a future parish council meeting. Adopted.
Good.
Is there the document circulated? That's a pretty good guide
And
to
NAC model policy.
Yeah.
the default sort of guidance.
So that's the proposal. Rob seconded it. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Is that okay? I should have read to the bottom of the page. I do apologise. The next item on the agenda is to whether we respond to the Great Grandson Neighbourhood Plan. We haven't responded to any of these neighbourhood plans in the past, and but please discuss if you'd like to or not. My proposal would be that we don't respond to the neighbourhood plan. Seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. Right. The next item on the list is John, Nina, and Claire. Right. Okay. So there's cost of fireworks. So in the past we have said that, and I don't know whether this is still the case, that we spend what we make on the fireworks, but it's settled down to about £1,600 a year.
And the same set of fireworks for the last few years.
Yeah. And the reason for that is that there was some money, £5,000, which was split over 5 years, £1,000 a year went into the cost of fireworks, and profit over and above, then you added the take, knock off the cost of fireworks. The profit is then ring-fenced through so that when the £5,000 has run out, which it now has, there are funds still available to carry the firework evening on into the future. And this last year was bumper bonus year.
It was. You took £2,319 in the game.
Yeah, so that, it's a good rolling thing, because when we first came into the Parish Council, one year you had a really good year, the next year it was a really good year. And debate on whether or not it should come out of Parish Council precept or not, and at the moment it's self-financing, so that element of thing has been taken away. The first thing we need to do is agree a date.
It falls quite nicely, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it does. I can't remember that date.
I don't think we can change the date for. Let's go. It's November, isn't it?
Is it November? Right, so the first proposal is, and I guess because we didn't propose it, haven't we? That the Parish Council led fireworks evening will take place on Saturday the 5th of November. That's the first proposal. Seconded by F. All those in favour? The second proposal is that the Parish Council spends the £1,622.66 plus VAT, or agrees that that's what the spend is.
There won't be VAT on that whole amount because part of it is an insurance premium.
Oh yeah. So apart from for the fireworks and insurance. Yeah, okay, we'll do it that way. So we'll agree that's a proposal to spend that.
Can I just add that amount is including this early bird discount,
Yeah.
which technically ended on the 31st of August.
Mm-hmm.
So I did speak to the fireworks provider and they said that if I place the order by phone, they can still apply it.
Excellent.
But I am not 100% confident of that because the young man I spoke to was not particularly reassuring.
Nicola, you'll have your persuasive hat on.
I will have my persuasive
Explain
hat
to
on,
everybody
but
that was what was promised.
I just wouldn't want to promise something to the council that I can't deliver.
What is the discount?
£358.
20%.
20%.
Yeah.
So it would take the cost otherwise up to nearly £2,000.
Yes, although they have another discount that they apply, I think it's 10 or 15%, that's their September discount. So if I can only get the 10 or 15%, then I would need a full budget of £1,800, which is what you've actually budgeted for in your accounts.
Okay.
You happy with that?
Absolutely.
There's a proposal, that's seconded, and we all agree. So the third proposal, I guess it needs, or the third course of action that needs to come on, is that the fireworks working group talk to the firework lighting group, Neil, is it? Sutherland, and agree that they're prepared to do the fireworks on that night.
I will vote Neil and his group.
And Feast Week, speak to Feast Week, that they're happy to provide refreshments.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun time. But just done 2 bits of your work that you need to do that. You might want to do it through the formal lines as well, so that everybody's happy. Then you'll want to get something in Spectrum, this month's Spectrum. Yeah, you need to get it in this month's Spectrum. Talk to Nicola. Yeah. Need to get it on the notice boards and on our social media, multimedia, whatever outlets. And then you need to ask parish councillors to volunteer on the evening to collect buckets and all that sort of thing. So parish councillors, please, if you can't remember the date, it's the 5th of November. And kick-off is normally about 6:30.
6 fireworks.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So look forward to receiving an update from you all at the next Parish Council meeting.
I will need a risk assessment from a member of the working group.
I have one already.
Give you the template that was used last year.
Yes.
I'll cast an eye.
Excellent. Thank you. Does that cover off everything?
Would you like to resolve that the working group will publicise and organise the event?
Yeah, shall we? Yeah. Seconded by it. And supported by everybody. Good. Anything else? No, that's it, isn't it? I just only go over the basics is because we've missed putting it up before without enough time in the past. Because suddenly you jump from September to November. Because you need to get it in October Spectrum. And it's possible. Next item is to receive an update regarding the county broadband project and decide upon any action. So we were asked about the pavilion. They agreed to connect it for free, so we said yes to make sure we got in the date. Project is now ahead. Deadline for pre-orders is now the 8th of September. Project should be complete in 6 to 12 months. And recommendation is that we advertise the closing date for pre-orders which is to put something on Facebook and on the website to remind parishioners if they want to take advantage of it, the closing date is the 8th of September, which is only Friday. That's a proposal. Seconded. All those in favour? Excellent. Next item is to receive and act to review the financial reports, of which you've all got copies. The finance working group needs to meet in the next month to discuss the preset setting and the budget for next year. At this moment in time, we only receive 49% of projected income.
You should get the other half of the preset.
Sorry. And we have spent, you might think we've only spent 36%, but that's because some of the reserves contributions don't come out until the final draft of figures, and I'm sure, as per every year, the true cutting spend hasn't happened as predicted, or hasn't been invoiced as predicted, and usually happens in the latter part of the year.
Yeah, we had the
After trees
invoices
is
for
underway.
last year's tree work in this year, which is why it's a earmarked reserves
Yeah.
allocation and has been taken out of that. So it's unusual for the tree work to be done within the financial year. Some years it happens and then we get 2 out of 3 invoices in before the close of the financial year and the last one comes in it.
And of course, we haven't had the firework cost go out yet, or the firework money coming yet. So, and we haven't had, which is something we should bear in mind, at this moment in time, the clerk's pay rise that would be due to April, from the 1st of April.
From the 1st of April this year.
Yeah, hasn't been agreed yet.
No, it hasn't. And the unions are still discussing it.
So that will have an impact. There
Because
will
that will
be,
be backdated to the 1st of April this year.
so that's still to go out. So at the minute, on track, but little bits to go out with regards to reserves, hence money there for bench maintenance, because we reserve for it, or accrue for it. Any questions on the finances, ladies and gentlemen? In that case, I would resolve that we accept the financial reviews. Yep, there we go. Seconded, and all those in favour, with a side note that the Finance Committee needs to meet before the October Parish Council Meeting, I think. Yeah, it should.
Yeah,
It should.
because then you've got the option to present the budget to
Yeah.
October, November and potentially December a push, depending on the deadline.
Excellent. Thank you. To note that the next item is to note that bank reconciliations have been carried out by Councillor Government Chair, and Rob has done those. Thank you very much. No issues were raised, so that's great. Thank you.
Resolve that this is noted.
Or we can resolve that was noted if you like.
Yes, please.
We was up there. It's been seconded by and everybody vote. Sound clear?
So,
I just wanted to know whether you were voting in favour or.
no.
So, and that is part of the audit practice that we need to
As
have.
part of your financial regs and your systems of internal control.
And we have had 2 payments received. The Peace Week utility bill has been settled for £194.69, and the Shroud of Hilton has been paid for at £70. Thank you very much. So we don't have to resolve to.
No.
No. The next item on the agenda is to agree the payments that are listed on the agenda. So, any questions on those? In that case, I will propose that those payments are approved. Seconded by Ed. All those in favour? Yeah. Which leads us to councillors' items to discuss. No, information only no discussion, no decisions can be made. John, anything to add? Claire?
I would like to find out a little bit more about the change to the footpath, if that is what's going to happen by Dean. Can I ask you about that? I'd also like to propose, but because I'm new to this, I'm not quite sure of the procedure, but I'd like to propose a litter picking party. Would Nicola advise me how to put this on the agenda for next month? Thank you.
No.
Three things I'd like to mention. So I went to an East-West Railway open meeting. I think I reported back that I've been to an online meeting previously, and I've got an invitation to attend another East-West Railway online meeting. So at the East-West Railway meeting, I bundled in, having been to the Parish Council's forum in the morning where we were told that the government was querying whether it still wanted to fund East-West Railway. We went in and said, oh, I understand you might be... No. And subsequently, there's been something published somewhere that Grant Shapps, guy over the other job, said that, yes, the government would still finance East-West Railway. They are in the process of still going through the consultation. They have not made a final decision. But this is on this section. This is Cambridge through to Milton Keynes, probably, because Milton Keynes outwards is being built. They haven't made their decision about where it's going to come to Cambridge, where it's going to come. Their preferred route, which is through Cambridge North, New Station, Cambridge South, New Station, into Cambridge, or whether it goes slightly north. There is an action group in Cambridge that wants it to go slightly north, but they are still looking at that, and it is going to be the subject of another one of the meetings, but I don't think it's the next meeting, I think it's the one after. And only when they've decided on which route they're going to go on will they then be able to put finishing touches to their application to the planning inspector. So I'll keep it posted. Luton Stag, mentioned earlier, we will put something together to go on the website and on Facebook about, and the Spectrum entry, about where people could complain to should they have concerns about the impact of the Luton Stag. But would remind us that over the next year, it's less than a year now, but over the next period, there is a closed bit where CAA are reviewing with Luton its impact at the moment. The other thing is I attended a carbon literacy training course, which of course if we all followed carbon literacy, there wouldn't be a problem with the Luton Stag, because none of us would be flying. I will put together something with regards to information bases you can go to find out about what you as an individual can do about reducing your carbon footprint. I have to say that I went on one of those and I lied about a lot of things that said, how do you travel? I walk or cycle everywhere. Do you go on holiday? No. Do you eat meat? No. And my carbon footprint was still higher than the amount that they recommend that we should all be looking to achieve as our carbon output. Okay? So you can take it from that if you put in what you actually engage in your average daily life, you'll exceed the amount of carbon that you should be responsible for as an individual. So there is a lot of work to be done. And as a parish council, we can look to replace our sodium bulbs with LED bulbs as they go. And that's about it. As individuals, we have to make life choices, because the parish council doesn't go to Bentley or other places that are available. The parish council doesn't drive a Rolls Royce around, or other cars are available. But we have a duty to signpost to people sources of information that they can use and digest about their own lifestyle choices. So I'll put something out on that.
Haven't some parish councils turned their street lights off or turned them down?
No discussion on this section.
So I would think, well, it will be something that becomes more and more, because of what we've seen this summer. That's apart from what we've seen in previous summers and winters over our lifetimes. And the broadband thing's been mentioned, so that is it. So that is the end of the open session of the Parish Council meeting. There are 2 items left on the agenda, which are to be discussed in closed. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Peter.
The agenda are discussed in a closed session. Seconded by Ed and supported by everyone.